Hello, I'm John Orty, and this is Behind the Stunts.
Do you ever get the feeling you're being hijacked? You see my mother about anywhere? She's over at the present time, so she's presumably pottering about in some shape or form and has decided to hijack the opening titles of this week's show. Never mind, we will crack on. I dare say she'll pop up again at some point before the show's out, so keep your eyes peeled for her. Right, where were we? Let's go on with this week's picture, which is Closed Circuit. It's a high-profile terrorism case unexpectedly binds together two ex-lovers who are on the defence team, testing the limits of their loyalties and placing their lives in jeopardy. A good picture, this, I must admit. Eric Bana, Rebecca Hall, good cast, strong movie. Good stunt team too, good British team involved here. Zareen Dallas doubles Rebecca Hall. Rick English is involved. Nazir Goboli is one of the Belmarsh prison guards. James Grogan is Eric Bana's double on the picture. Adam Horton takes charge of some of the action there in the prison. There's a prison sequence. Peter Badero is involved, and Douglas Robson doubles Doug Allen. Much of the film is shot in London, and we get to see many of the landmarks as the cars chase through the streets. Fight breaks out at the prisons and outside football matches, so it's just another day in the capital. A fine job done by all, as you'll see. This is the trailer for Closed Circuit, and it's out on Friday. Here we go.
November 30th, 10:43, bright sunny day, innocent people. Truck approaches from the west entrance.
Mate, you can't park here!
10:45. No time to do anything about it.
This is the most high-profile murder case in British history.
You and Miss Howe are defending the accused terrorist from the government.
And you're from the New York Times. I don't speak to journalists about trials relating to matters of national security.
Do you know of any reason which would prejudice your ability to carry out this case?
No, my lord.
No, my lord, I know of no reason. There is some evidence against you, which the prosecution believes should be kept secret from the public and from you. You broke into my chambers.
I think you're mistaken.
Claudia, we're being managed. Within 6 months, our client goes from driving a taxi to driving a brand new Mercedes, spending $2 grand a week. Where did all the money come from?
British intelligence brought him in as a double agent. He was supposed to lead them to the terrorist cell before the attack. And that's where it all went wrong. Prior to the bombing, there was no contact between MI5 and the defendant. Defense lawyers who ask the wrong sorts of questions, they're expendable.
There are over 500,000 closed-circuit cameras in London. I'm sure there are at least half a dozen watching me right now.
There are people who really want a conviction here.
Should have kept her mouth shut.
MI5 do not kill people on the mainland. And what the hell have you got yourself into?
We're simply trying to defend our client. Dump your bag, dump everything.
Get out of there, now!
There are powers at play that neither you nor I may even hope to control.
Good stuff, that, and massively enjoyable. I think that's very great. Great to go and see that this weekend. Bear in mind that your alternative would be Bad Grandpa. Tricky choice, really, but that's where my money would be. Now, the stunt team, one of the stunt team involved in this week's movie, Adam Horton, is the subject of our stunt reel feature for this week. He joined the register, in the British Register anyway, in 2010, but he'd had 10 years international stunt work and 13 years military experience under his belt by that time, and since then has been involved in a whole series of big budget adventures. Machine Gun Preacher, Dark Knight Rises, Jack the Giant Slayer, World War Z, and Fast and Furious 6, to name but a few. You'll see from this particular reel that Adam is so much more than just an absolute hooligan. the car explodes, and then he does the full fire burn. Some absolutely brilliant, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Adam Horton, and you'll be seeing a great deal more of him, I dare say, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that he's involved in coming out either this year or next year, so keep an eye out for that. Right, so...
Would you like a cup of tea?
No, we're grand just at the minute, my love. Thank you very much indeed. Just in the middle of a show, so maybe we'll have one later. Very good. Now, our stunt classic for this particular week, we go back to 1974, and it's not only a classic, but I mean it's a first. We go back to pioneers of the stunt business. Hal Needham, Ronnie Rondell were both working on a picture entitled McHugh, a John Wayne movie. John Wayne playing a cop. And there'd been a fair bit of action during the course of the picture. There'd been a couple of chase sequences, bit of car chase stuff. Then there was going to be the finale, the ultimate car chase across a beach. And the idea is, of course, that there is high-powered gunfire and a car roll is needed. Now, in 1974, the only way you could get a car to roll over would be a ramp. And what normally would happen is they might hide a ramp in some shape or form. Even the pipe ramp hadn't been invented by this time. So it would be small ramps, you could get the wheel up, turn the car, and it would roll. But they realised that this just wasn't going to happen on this particular stretch of beach. It was far too flat, you couldn't hide anything anywhere. And Hal and Ronnie looked at the situation and said, well, we need to come up with something that will cause this car to turn over without the use of a ramp. What they came up with was a cannon loaded with a 3-foot telegraph pole and a black powder charge. Now the idea was to throw the car broadside and hit the cannon. Now the interesting thing here, it's in 3 stages. Firstly, there was a static test. The static test had 5 4-ounce powder bombs, and they loaded the charges and they hit the button and the car lifted 6 inches and went nowhere. So clearly they said, well, we got no choice here, we're going to have to throw everything we have at it. And not only that, they couldn't afford to do another static charge. They couldn't afford just to have the car there with nobody in it. They needed to see what the reaction was when the button was pushed. Hal Needham said, I'll do it. And he got in the car and they strapped him in, and there was a cannon placed just behind the driver's seat and another one at the back of the passenger seat. So 2 points of contact for this cannon charge to go off. And he drove it at 55 miles. This was a test area. He drove it at 55 miles an hour. He swung it into a skid. Now here's the interesting point. Nowadays, when stunt drivers are behind the wheel and they're going to activate a cannon, the cannon is either activated on the steering wheel, on the handbrake, so once the car is skid, you can hit the thing and fire it. This was done remotely by the special effects guy. Special effects guy is 150, 200 yards away. And he's in charge of firing that button. I don't know whether I would want that. I mean, you look at the things nowadays and you think, I'm not so sure that would be such a great idea. But this was 1974, they didn't know any different. And so the special effects guy went, boop, hit the button. And this car went 35 feet in the air. It bounced, it crashed, it rolled. Consequently, he said himself, how, when it finished rolling, he managed to crawl out of the back seat. The back window, of course, had crashed and smashed. He managed to crawl out through the back window, and Gary McClarty had to give him mouth to mouth because he was not breathing. The doctor said that he had 6 broken ribs, a punctured lung, he broke his neck, and Hal himself said, I realised that I got 3 teeth missing. And this was a test, you know, and they had enough to do one more, which was the take. And ultimately, he says himself that Gary McClarty drove the car, and there are other people that say that Glenn Wilder drove it, but whatever the situation was, that organisation, Stunts Unlimited, were the people that created this. And Gary McClarty then got into the car, did the take, and it was much more successful. It was still a serious, took a beating, no two ways about it, but it was a much simpler, if there is such a thing, a much simpler role than the one that Hal Needham had done in testing. As you will see from this clip, here's the clip from McHugh from 1974, the first ever cannon roll captured on film, and it goes like this. Exceptional, isn't it? And even now, as far as cannon rolls go, and there's been 30, 40 years since that happened, and that's still a very, very fine example of a cannon roll, and it bouncing down the beach, good sequences as well. It's a great sequence, all the water crashing through the sea there, and of course the music is a big part of that sequence too. Elmer Bernstein's big music building to a crescendo as he manages to get that gun out of the bag. It's very Quantum of Solace, or Question of Sport as it's known in certain circles, where he manages to get that gun out and then fire it at the opposite car. Then maybe that's where Gary Powell got the idea from. Who knows? But a terrific sequence. The very first time that a cannon roll was seen on screen, McHugh, and that is our stunt classic for this week. Right, that's it for this week, and more of the same next week. Okay, until next time, say goodbye, Mum.
Goodbye, Mum.
Bye for now.